Legislation according to your human resource function. Where does it start? It started off with our Constitution 108 of 1996. And that was to ensure that we were going to be redressing the inequalities of the past. The Constitution is the supreme law. Nothing can supersede the law. So the Constitution has come up with and those rights, for example, rights to freedom of movement, political rights, right to housing, water, a right to education, and a right to be protected against discrimination are all parts of the Constitution. When you see, you might get a scenario where it said a white male has applied for a job at Engine and the job specified that it was an affirmative action position. Now, affirmative action means that it is for everybody except for the white male. So everybody that was marginalized in the past would be able to apply for the job except for the white male, because in South Africa before, the white had received all the opportunities based on apartheid, okay? So what would happen if you got that scenario? You would then say the limitation clause comes into effect. So it is not seen as discrimination because the limitation clause states that rights are not absolute in circumstances. So the white male applying for the job and being told, sorry, you are white, is not seen as discrimination because of the limitation clause, and the limitation clause is there to redress inequalities of the past. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Your Labour Act then came into play, and that was to ensure that there were labour standards and guidelines, because there was nothing like that before. People could hire and fire and pay as little as they wanted. So the Labour Relations Act came into play in South Africa. The negative part of that is that now your trade unions have power and can actually impact on your economy if trade unions had to say, do a go slow or whatever the case is. And we've had that in petrol stations before, where there's been a go slow and industry is then affected and our economy is affected by that. Inclusivity, what does inclusivity mean? Inclusivity is everybody that has been excluded or marginalized, including people who have physical or mental disabilities. So that is very much part of the Constitution, is about bringing inclusive space. There are 3 generations of rights. I've seen this in an IB exam, and I've just put it in there so that you know, I've only seen it as a multiple choice or a short question. What are our 3 generations of rights? Well, we've got civil and political, social and economic, environmental and developmental. Right, let's get into those laws, because according to your SAGS document, you need to understand the various laws and the implications of the laws. Implication means the positive and the negative side of these laws. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is employment equity. Now, employment equity refers to a workplace that employs the right number of people from different race and gender groups. Affirmative action is the way of reaching this. So affirmative action includes Black, colored, Indian, Chinese, all females, and disabled people. And employment equity targets set for companies so that you can readdress the inequalities of the past and you can right the wrongs. So, for example, your employment equity, what are the implications on that? What are the positives? Well, like I've said before, it corrects the imbalances of the past. Grade 12, please, with every one of these acts, you say it redresses the inequalities of the past. Get those words in your head, because that's what you're going to say for all of it, okay? So it makes that there is a diverse workplace where you've got people from different cultures, people from different sex, people from different physical abilities, all coming together in one space and adding value. What is the negative side? Well, the workload is increased with employment equity because someone actually has to target and have a look and manage and put a database together of your employment equity targets and to make sure that you are meeting those targets. So it increases a workload, and some people don't really have the skills to do the work. With regards to your current affairs, I actually found something in the Business Day, the 21st of July, 2020. The Minister of Employment and Labour has gazetted amendments to this Employment Equity Act. And he has basically said that companies that fail to comply with targets can be fined between 1% and 10% of turnover, and also be disqualified from doing business with government. So that is also a negative aspect of not complying to the Employment Equity Act. Let's have a look at your BBBEE. So your broad-based Black economic empowerment has been brought about again. Why? To redress inequalities of the past. Before, Black people did not have any managerial opportunities. They were never moved up. And I'm talking 20, 30 years ago, in apartheid time. They were never moved up and could never be managers. And that was based on apartheid. So just from a current affairs point of view, you've got a liquid fuels charter that your South African petroleum and liquid fuels industry have put together to empower historically disadvantaged South Africans. So don't forget that. Put that into a paper too. You're going to get those current affairs marks. So what happens with broad-based Black economic empowerment? Why should we look at this? Well, it allows participation in the formal South African economy. Companies will favor you as a client. You're able to bid for government tenders and apply for licenses and get permits. There are tax incentives and financial grants, and you will avoid long questionnaires relating to BEE or BBBEE when tendering for a contract. What is the difference between BEE and BBBEE? Well, BBBEE came into effect. That was the first stage. And that was about bringing Black managers into your businesses. It was flawed though, because a lot of companies were window dressing. When I say window dressing, they were hiring, or they were just taking a lower management or someone from that was working in the garden, your gardener, and saying, this is the CEO of my business. I have a Black manager, so I can now tender for government contracts. And he would be in the organogram and he would be getting paid the salary, but he was not contributing or not being able to work as a manager. So people recognized that there was a flaw, so they brought about broad-based Black economic empowerment, and they put together 7 pillars. We've normally spoken about 5 pillars, but I see in your SAGS document that there are 7 pillars. So I've come up with a little bit of an acronym to try and remember the 5 pillars, and you'll be able to add 2. And that is HOMS. So HOMS, that stands for, the O stands for ownership. You need a minimum of 40% Black owner in your business, ownership in your business. 51% lets you automatically go into level 2 BBBEE. Okay, the M stands for management control. So that is the amount of Black managers that you have in your organogram. The 3 S's, the S stands for skills development, and that is about developing the skills of Black people, Black employees. Your supply development, and that buying from Black-owned companies, will be bringing in some points for you. Socio-economic development, developing your community, your corporate social responsibility programs, and that is about empowering Black people in your community. The other pillar, the other 2 pillars, is your employment equity. So again, we've looked at that act now. It's bringing in your employment equity targets and making sure bringing in and employing Black people. And then the other one is new enterprise. And that is about allowing entrepreneurship, Black entrepreneurship, teaching, upskilling, kind of going out and really making a difference for Black entrepreneurships, that they're able to start their own businesses. So those are your 7 pillars. I hope my home is going to make you remember it. If not, you just learn those 7 pillars. The Skills Development Act. So it goes without saying, what is that about? It's about upskilling. It's about bringing in your training, and that's an HR function. So the National Skills Authority developed a National Skills Development Strategy with the SETAs, which is your Sector Education and Training Authorities. And they've put together the Skills Development Act and Skills Development Levies. How does it work? So each company, it is a compulsory payment. You've got to pay 1% of your payroll to the Skills Development Act. There is an opportunity for you to get some money back. How do you do that? Well, you've got to have a workplace skills plan, a WSP. If you send through that WSP, you can claim back 10%. So in that work skills plan, remember you're looking at your skills gap, and it's about Black employees or marginalized employees. Okay, you're going to get various points for that. You also need to put in your annual training report. Your annual training report will allow you to claim back 20%. And that annual training report will then state how many people you've trained and what accreditation they've achieved and received. Remember, it needs to be SETA accredited programs, otherwise they're not going to recognize it. Why is it so important for you to bring to have a skills development within your business? Well, it's to improve qualifications and skills. It's to provide learnerships. It's bringing different skill set to people. It's developing entrepreneurship. There's employment opportunities for people to move up and, as we said, improve skill level. What are the negatives? Well, your SETA is not always effective. Things take time, so it can be seen as ineffective. And another negative was that you used to be able to claim 50% of the levy. You're now only allowed to claim 20%. That would be seen as a negative. Basic Conditions of Employment Act is the next act that we're going to look at. This act, these laws will be in your employment contract. Okay, so they will stipulate what kind of have, how they're going to pay you, etc., etc. Why do we have this act? Well, it's to protect the employee. It is to ensure that the minimum wage is achieved, or more than that, prevents child labor, and it brings about fairness within the workplace. Some of the acts that you would have, or some of the laws that you would have in this act, is leave. Annual leave. The Basic Conditions of Employment Act provides that an employee is entitled to a minimum of 21 consecutive days. That amounts to about 15 working days leave that you get a year. Your sick leave, it's 30 days in a 3-year cycle that you are able to claim for sick leave. If you go over that, you will then probably get unpaid leave. Maternity, you have 4 months maternity leave. Now, some companies, they're not obligated to pay for those months that you're off. Some companies do, and they've got different requirements that you need to do. I know when I worked at Kimberly-Clark, I had to pay, I got 4 months full pay maternity leave, but I had to work back a year in order to work that off. So every company has got different policies with regards to that. But you have 4 months, they don't have to pay you, but you are guaranteed to get your job back. Family responsibility leave is 3 days. So that could be if there's a funeral, or if something's gone wrong, or paternity leave, you become a new father, you will get 3 days leave. Public holidays, you get paid double. If you work on a public holiday, notice period. If you've worked there for a year, you need to give 1 month notice period. So you would then resign after the month, or you'd leave after the month. And then working hours, remember you can only work a maximum of 40 hours per week. I put this in because I wanted you to have some current affairs for your broad-based Black economic empowerment with regards to petrol stations. So Engine does a pitch and polish program, which is a guide to entrepreneurs, to Black entrepreneurs. So please put that into your current affairs. I also found that they do a Engine Convoy Fund, which supports SMMEs, companies with less than 50 million rand turnover. It's all about business development, and you have to have it's going to be 51% Black owned or Black female owned businesses that they will then help start you up and provide capital and provide business development. Please add those into your paper twos. Grade 12, so I've just pulled some questions that I've seen in the past paper, just to give you an idea of what kind of questions you could get. So the first one says, explain 2 aspects that will ensure Shell will comply with BBBEE Act when it empowers employees. So the 2 aspects that will ensure that Shell complies and empowers is your recruitment, making sure that you are recruiting people in affirmative action positions, skills development of your Black employees, promotions of your Black managers. So you're going to bring in any one of those pillars and you're going to work it into the question. This was a paper 2 question. The Engine managers have a key role directly related to the employees. It's important that these managers possess in-depth knowledge of the South African labour law. The aim of this report, required. As the senior human capital manager at Engine, you are required to write a report to newly appointed managers. The aim of this report is to help these managers understand the purpose and the implications of the South African labour legislation and the overall performance of Engine. As the human capital manager, you also have to stipulate what should be done to ensure that Engine complies with the South African labour laws. That is a good paper 2 question, and it's everything we've just covered now. Grade 12s, thank you so much. The next section, we're going to be looking at dispute resolution mechanisms and the procedure of how to dismiss someone within your business. Thank you very much.